Now, there's a school of thought. You'll hear it in sermons, you'll read it in books, it's in magazines, you'll see it by preachers on television, that God brings suffering and evil things for some larger benefit. That's taught. That somehow that gets into our brain thinking. But that does not line up with Jesus, our best picture of God. We have to line up everything we believe about God with how Jesus is. When he was here on this earth, we have a picture of what he's like. He came to seek and save that which is lost. He called bad things the work of the enemy, not his Father. He didn't say, oh, Dad did that. No, he said that bad things that happen are the work of the enemy. Evil and suffering are the work of Satan, not God. Now, people get sick and are sure it's karma. They got ill. They deserve it somehow. Somehow they deserve this illness. In some cases, they'll even say it was God's will that he gave them the disease for their good. I hear this when we're doing funerals. I'll be with a family, we'll be planning things, and somebody will say, I just don't understand why God took him. Oh, God. Read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Gospels. Read the story of Jesus and search carefully and see if you ever see Jesus giving disease, giving leprosy, making someone crippled or dumb or blind. It's not there. No, he came to suffer and by his suffering relieve the suffering of humanity. He longs with a greater longing than ours for a time when there'll be no more pain, there'll be no more sorrow, there'll be no more death. That's heaven, folks. No more suffering. Suffering is not something that God wants for his children. It is sin that brings the suffering. We all share in it as part of the fallen sinful world. Sickness, drought, flood, loss of loved ones, natural disasters, aches and pains, mental fatigue are all just random pieces of shrapnel sin flying around our world and hitting us. Don't be blaming God. Don't be blaming God. The suffering of abuse as a child at the hand of an adult, don't chalk that up to the will of God. God forbid. It isn't so. It's not his will. It was never his intention, never his will that we would know the pain and the sorrow and the separation that death brings or that suffering brings to our lives. That's sin in our lives, folks. That's sin's problem. He has an emptied heaven, and he risked his very unity as God because he wants to make all things new, set all things right again in the universe, to be done with all the suffering that comes with sin. That's what God wants. You see, even all the suffering that comes to Christ's followers, even as a result of doing the right thing, all the suffering, all the pain is from the deceiver, the taker of life, not from our God. Now, there's no doubt, folks, the Bible is clear. God can take evil that comes into our lives, suffering that comes into our lives, and he can turn it to a good thing for us. That's there. Romans 8:28, all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. But don't you for a moment say God's bringing that suffering. God may use it, he'll redeem it, but he doesn't bring it.